Rendering glass objects like these are always a bit difficult to set up because of the refraction and the render settings, and all these things are a bit tricky to do. And I will show you today how you can set up realistic glass shaders and render settings. Hello everyone and welcome along to episode 611, where I will be showing you how to set up realistic glass. In my previous video, which was a live session actually, I spent 2 hours modeling, shading, and rendering a glass jar, like a glass bottle. And at one point after the modeling, I went to Substance Painter and I pretty much tried to do something there, but because, I don't know, there were almost 200 people watching and I was a bit under pressure, so I was struggling a bit to get something out like looking good. So I thought just to revisit or reiterate on the Substance Painter side where we do the texture and the breakup, I will be just jumping, excuse me, I will be jumping into Substance right now, and then we can continue from there on. But before we jump into the fun stuff, I want to thank you all for your continued support on Patreon and on my Discord channel. The Discord channel is growing immensely. We're almost now at 1,100 members already, so the community is growing very fast. It's really cool because everyone is sharing. We have team challenges, we have regular challenges. So if you're up for it, please join me on Discord. And also, if you want to join this tutorial, if you want to follow along, all the source files are uploaded on my Patreon, which you can access via my Patreon link in the description below, or you can become a YouTube member as well to get direct access to all my previous source files of my previous tutorials, and obviously of this one where I will be giving you the model, like the glass bottle or the glass jar, and obviously you will get the Substance Painter access and yeah, the Maya scene files as well, where I'm setting up a shader in the end as well. So enough talking, let's jump into Substance Painter right now. All right, here we are. Excuse the small scale of the UI. It's just because Substance doesn't have the option to scale the UI, so I'll be trying to explain every step I do more in detail so you can follow along. So I'm just creating a new project here, and I'm selecting the file, which is my high poly count of the glass bottle. So let's just import this bottle high, and I want to work in, let's say we start working in a 2K resolution for now, and then we just say we want to create a texture set per udimm tile, and we just hit OK. So this will import all the objects and all the udimms. So you can see how I modeled that in the live session I had before, but it's a very simple model, nothing too spectacular going on here. First thing what I want to do is bake the curvature and all these kind of things. So we will be going to the texture set settings, and we go to the bake mesh maps option here. We disable the ID. And in the comment tab, we just take the checkbox, use low poly mesh as high poly mesh, and we want to capture it in 2K. And then we just say bake all texture sets. Then we just hit OK after it's done, and then we have all the texture sets baked out. We can look at them here in the menu. We scroll down, and then we have all the output maps. So we've got all the fun stuff here: thickness and occlusion and curvature and whatnot. Because it's glass, we don't really will use them, but it's good to have them in any case if you have some smart materials or whatnot. So what happens at first when you load it up, you get this paint layer. So you can actually paint here, and in the properties settings, you can actually paint directly in all these different channels. On default, it's just painting in color, height, roughness, metal, and normal. But we actually do not want that. What we want to do instead, at least for now, we want to create a fill layer, and then we want to just delete the paint layer. So right now, this is our base. We just call this base. And what this is doing, it will actually paint on all the outputs, like as I said before. And it will right now only paint on the texture set 1. So what is important, what I want to do, I want to right click this here, and I want to go to instantiate across texture sets. And then I just want to check all the other ones except the source. What that does is we'll actually copy the same kind of layer to all the different texture sets. So if I switch my texture sets to 102, you can see it has this one as well. I can still delete the layer 1, which is there on default as well, but we see there's a base instance which is coming from my source layer. So that is important to do that. So the first properties for glass, At least working with Arnold, I know how that works. So we don't want a base color. We just want to have this black. And for the roughness, we don't want to have any roughness at all. So this is a super clean, polished glass bottle. And for the rest, we can just leave it as is. Let me just bring in the reference, which is this guy. And to display this, I'm using Pure Ref, which is a very cool reference viewer. You have lots of options to move it where you need it to be, and you can scale it, and you can rotate it if you need to. You can crop it, and that's actually something what I want to do. So I just want to focus on the bottle. So just by hitting C, I can actually drag a little region and release that, and it will actually crop it, which is perfect. So this is my reference. So what I want to do, pretty much, I just want to break up the reflections, and how I want to do that is with a new fill layer, which is just targeting the roughness, right? So to do that, I just click again on the top here, create another fill layer, and I'll just call this one roughness. And instead of having it affect all the channels as the base, I just want to enable it on the roughness. So I'm just unchecking all the other ones. And you can see we only have the roughness slider, which is now on top, which is now on top of the base. And before we do all this, we want to actually work with glass, and we want to have like a glass representation. On default, the Substance Painter does not display transmit or opacity. So on the right, there's a little shader settings tab, which you can click and make sure that the PBR metal rough is switched to a PBR metal rough with alpha blending. And that enables you to actually visualize opacity. But we still need to do one more thing, which is creating a new channel. If you hit here the plus sign, there's like opacity. And we need to actually do this for all the channels. I didn't find a way yet to create the channels for all the other ones as well. So I'm just clicking it 3 times for the sets, opacity, and we want it for this one as well. And we click one more time on the plus, create opacity here. So if I go back to properties and I click on my shader, and I actually need to go to texture set 1, and I go to the base. And now you can see if I click the opacity channel here, we had a new slider. And if I bring that down all the way, you can actually see the transparency kicking in. Right now, I don't have a backdrop, but we can just visualize that. There's like a display options here. And I just have it off on default. So I'm just reducing the opacity blur, the environment blur, and I'm just bringing up the opacity. And then you can see we have that little thing here in the background as well. We can blur it a bit, but it's a bit distracting. So I tend to actually have it off. I just disable it. But it's there. You can see it's in the reflections here. If you hold shift and right click, you can actually rotate the environment. So you can always see nice reflections everywhere. All right, so now let's just go back to the roughness here. And what I want to do, I want to create a roughness color. So what I want to do here in the shelf, I'm switching over to grunges, and there's like a nice one called Grunge Leak. And if I just drag it in the uniform color here, you can already see now just by doing that, we get this nice little, it's almost looking very glass-like already just because it's like broken up a bit. We can move it if you want to place it a bit better. On the left here, I'm just moving the udimms on the UVs, I mean, so I can actually scale it down a bit until I'm satisfied with all the leaks and the running down water look. And you can see this effect is also here on the reference. So you can see are these leaks, and there is some kind of dust layer on top or something like that. I'm just bringing in a bit more of the opacity, so it's not super transparent, so we can just see it a bit better. And you can see we have these nice little streaks now, which are helping quite a lot to just get this dirty up looking glass. And if you actually want, if you want to bring in some dust or something like that, we can totally do that by just creating another base layer. And I think, I'm not actually sure if we transfer the roughness to the other ones. I don't think so. What you can do is hold Alt and right click. It's Control Alt and right click, and then you can select different texture sets in the viewport. You can see if I select the inside, we don't have the roughness. So what I still need to do, I need to instantiate this across the other ones as well. So now we have the same roughness map on the inside and on the bottom as well, which is what we want. Next up is to create some more like running down water or something like that. So what we can do here, we go on the outside texture set, and what we can right click this and we can add different masks to this. So if I create a black mask, this effect is fully disabled. But actually I want to create a white mask so it's fully on, and then I just want to paint on the mask with some kind of black to get some kind of like streaks or something which are a bit more clear. So for that I want to use another fill layer in here, add a fill, and this time I'm just using the grunge leak small, for instance, and I'm just dropping this in here. And if we want to just visualize that, you can alt click it and you can see only that map. And what I want to do is I want to multiply it with, I just want to level it up so I have a bit more contrast in this. And you can do that with a level modifier here, or you can try to get it with the contrast. And I think the contrast for this, what I want to do, will work fairly well. Or I think it will. Let's see. So what does this look like? So it's pretty much the inverse. So I think we would just need to invert this effect here because we want whatever is black now, we just want to have that to be white. So I think in the levels, we can just flip it. If I go to the roughness here, is that how it works? Yeah. So I'm just flipping those values. So now whatever is white will hopefully do, like, will bring us this running water look. Let's see if this is true. And now we can see that wherever there's some running water, we can see this effect. Like we actually see the streaks. So if you want to actually have the water to make it clear where the water was running down, then you would obviously need to invert this to have it the opposite. But why I did this is because, in my opinion, this running water was already running down and dust collected on it, so it just got a bit rougher. But we are not done yet. I still need to adjust it because now it's just fully black and this is just too much. So we just wanted to have like a way more range in it, something more like this. And then we can play with the other levels to just get some more detail in it. So let's just see what we can do. I'm just trying to lift the black so we just have some more range, so it's not super shiny everywhere. But I think this is the way to do it. If I disable the mask, so this is what it was before. Let's just rotate the environment. You can see how that looks. If I bring it back, this is now the effect. So we still have the feeling of a glass, but then you get these streaky smudges on it. And I think that is pretty much what I want to go for. You can see it looks like glass. It's pretty cool. And next up is I want to create these inside droplets or particles, whatever that is. And I want to use a height map for that. A height map is in Substance Painter. You can use that as a little bump map, or actually it's a displacement map, but we will use the height map as our bump map once we render this. So I'm creating a new fill layer again here, and this will be, we actually need to be on just on the inside texture set for this. So Alt Control right click in the middle, and let's create a new fill layer in here and call this inside breakup or whatever. And we just want to target height. So now it's still the same as before. We're just now working on the inside material. And I think we can also hide the other objects. So now we can actually see inside the glass like this. All right, so it's actually fairly straightforward. I just want to have something at the bottom here. So what I can do then, I can just find something which I think works well. So let's just go to the breakup and the properties here. And then I'll just drop some kind of grunge map, something with some little spots or whatever. And I think this grunge map 13 might do it. Obviously, it's way too strong. But we can obviously dial it back down. So let's just create a levels here. And then let's see if we can actually visualize it by just looking into the height map. So this is what it looks like. And we want to scale it down. So at the top here, there's the scale option to just scale it down. So it's a lot smaller, something like this. Can offset it if need be, but then let's just work on the height here. and just to add some more contrast. Something like that. Let's see how it looks. And now it's still super strong. So what we can do, we can just reduce the overall effect. So I want to first switch the layer to height, and then in here, I want to switch it to, or click on auto, so it actually assigns the ranges properly. And then I can just reduce the intensity by just reducing the height, the white point. So now we can see that we get some kind of little breakup here. All right, so this is now breaking it up, and this is maybe still a bit too much. So now we just want to actually clamp it down so we get less detail in here. So let's see if we can actually get it. So this is what we need, like just these little spots here. And this is actually exactly what I want to get this kind of look. And we can still dial down the overall intensity by just reducing it a slight amount more. And now we have these little breakups, these little dents here. So if I go back to my texture set list and I just bring back all the other ones, we can now see that from the outside we don't have it, but then once we look through it, you can see there's these kind of little breakup things here. All right, next up I was talking about that there on the inside here that there is some kind of streaks of running water or some liquid residue. And Substance Painter got famous, or not famous, but a lot of attention because it has these nice physical paint brushes or whatever it's called. So we will be utilizing them now just to get some inside running water effect. And by doing that, I just want to create another, or this time not a fill layer, but a paint layer on texture set 2. We just want it on the inside as well. So I'm just creating a paint layer here, which is this little stack plus thing. And we just call this like running water, or single T, like that. And we're just on this texture set, and we can just hide the other ones just for now. And what we then want to do, we can hit Control-1, I think is the hotkey for this. But we can just click on the physical paint, and in the physical properties, we can, or actually here on the shelf, there's also brush preset. And we just want to pick leaks, for instance, that should do the trick. And if I paint now, you should see that there is something running down. And it's important that you bake the texture maps because then it knows the normals, it knows where it needs to float. So that's a benefit of having those. The brush size is a bit small, so I'm just increasing that so we get larger drips. And also I want to set up in the channels for this brush that it should only affect the height and the roughness. Actually, let's just pick the roughness for now. So whenever we paint, the roughness should be adjusted, and the roughness should be painted black, so it gets more shiny on the inside. I'm always hitting Control-Z to undo because we're still not there yet. We still need to fix up some settings here. We definitely want the life to be a lot longer. So at the bottom here, there is a particle life, and we just max it out. And we don't want to randomize it that much. So now if I paint, we should see actually them running down all the time. And you can see them like painting, or just, you can see that they're actually like running down and creating like a different kind of look to it. I also want to adjust the emitter to be a single object only. So it only when I paint, I can click and it just creates me one drop. And what I also want to do, I want, now that the size is so large, I just reduce that down. So we have pretty much this size, which is cool, maybe a bit bigger. And then I don't want to have it to fade. So the fade size, I think I need to reduce it all the way so it doesn't fade as much. You can see now it's pretty much a straight line, and this is perfect. What I still want to do is create some kind of motion left and right. So there's a turbulence power. Let's just boost it and see what we get. Yeah, it's actually creating a bit more, which is great. So let's just go crazy and just see what it does. Those settings do. Yeah, no, this is going pretty nicely, going all the way left and right. So this is a very cool effect. And I think this is all we have to do. So now we can actually very art direct and paint where we want to have some drips. So I can click here, and I need to wait for it to run down. Otherwise I'm stopping the animation, or the simulation actually. So I'm just clicking now, and we can actually see that we get some really cool effect. And let's say we just want to create a bump as well, so, or just a height. So if I bring up the height and I just move the height up, I think we should get a little extrusion now as well. This might have been in the wrong direction. Let's just go the other way. Yeah, you can see now there's some kind of thickness to it, which is amazing. Let's just, obviously it's a bit much, so I'm just reducing this by quite a lot. And I'm just clicking still to get some more droplets here. And you can see like how beneficial these physical maps are. As the physical paintbrush, you can just click and it actually creates all the hard work, or does all the hard work for you. It's pretty cool stuff. Let's click one more. I don't want to create too many because it shouldn't be too much. It's just like some condensation drips here. You can see it works very well now. And let's just bring back the other texture sets. Show all. There we go. Just for the fun of it, can I actually do it? No, I could copy this. Yeah, what the hell? Let's just copy, instantiate it to all the other ones. No, actually, does it? I can copy it maybe. I think it makes more sense. I'll copy this and I go to texture set 1 and I'll just paste it here. And now we have the running water on this side as well. So let's say I just want to create one droplet here on the top. You can see now it's running all the way down, splitting. And it stopped. Let's create one more here. Oh, I think it's actually, because it's on the outside now, we just need to reverse the effect. So right now it's going on the inside. We just need to go on the other side. So let's just do this again. Just click here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Do one more here. And I'm holding shift and right click, and I'm just shift right click and dragging to rotate the environments. All right, so I think this is now, I think, more or less good for the glass. So why don't we just export those maps and see how they look in the render engine? Oh, actually, we can hit iRay first. Let's just do that. So iRay is the built-in ray tracer. And I just click, it takes a bit of time to load it up. And then this is what it is. So this is now ray traced. And I couldn't find out how to actually get refractions working in here. I know you can go in the shader settings here and bring up the refraction, but I still couldn't get it to render. Even if I go back to the outside and I reduce the opacity on my base like this, and then I go back to the iRay thing, it still didn't actually compute refractions properly. So it just does this, which is not correct. It just feels like it's like transparent now. It's like as if there's no thickness to it. So I couldn't get it to work properly in iRay. So that's why I just kept working in this here, which I think is fair enough. It works well enough. So now that we have all this, we have actually worked with 2 texture sets. I didn't care much about the bottom because it will be filled with liquid. So what I want to do next is, let's just first minimize this guy and hit File and Export Textures. And then we can go to the preset and find, I think I have an Arnold one, Arnold 5 Custom, which is just outputting the maps I need. It is just the roughness and the height maps. That's all I need for this. Because I'm just working with this. I didn't create a dust or whatever or dirt. We can just do something really quickly in Arnold, I think. So let's just hit the export thing here and go to export. And then we can open the folder. So we get the texture. So this is what we got. So if I click here, we should see something. This is the height map. You can see there are some streaks on it. And this is our roughness map. You can see the running water on the side. It's perfect. So I just thought, actually, before we go into on, let's just create a quick dust pass. So let's go to base color here and make sure we are on texture set on the top one. And then we can just create a dust pass quickly. So I just want to create a fill layer again, which is this guy. We just move it all the way to the top, and we just call this dust. And in here in the properties, I just want to affect maybe height. No, maybe not. Let's just do a very basic color here. And oh, we want roughness as well. And then we go to procedural. Oh, actually, we go to grunges, and then we just maybe we can search for dust. Yeah, some fingerprints, grunge vibe, dusty. Yeah, let's just use this one and see what we get. I'm just dropping this in here in the roughness first. And let's just change the base color just to something black. Let's see if I hide the other ones. This is now the dust pass. And let's just do some balancing here. Just make it very rough, like this. It's still not rough enough. I think this might work. And then we just need to break it up with a mask. So I'm just creating a, what do I need? A white mask. And then in the mask, I just want to create a different procedural. Actually, we can use another dust. But let's use this bigger one here and just drop it. Oh, actually, we need to create a fill layer first, like that. And then we drop it in here. So now we have that. So I just need to bring actually back the visibility on the base on all my previous layers. So then I can go to the roughness, and now I just dropped it in, and now I have the mask in here. So now you can see that I have more rougher parts. So by just adjusting the contrast and the balance here, you can see that I'm just creating the dust or these little rough areas where I need them to. So let's just switch to the roughness here. This just helps me to see what I'm actually doing. And I just want to have like a pretty harsh effect, something like this. You can try scaling it down or scaling it up actually. So we're not affecting too much. And then I think this should do it. And then it's not bad. It's just a bit too large, I think. I think this ought to do it. So let's just go back to the full render. So to the whole material, and you can see there's these drier parts now. So if I go back to my base color, we still have the same map applied. So all I have to do now is just add some kind of color to this. So I can just bring up the color here, and you can see now we have some kind of dust. We can just play it with a mask, like we can also assign like a gradient to this. So let's just see if there is like a gradient or something like that. All right, let's just pick a basic color for now, and then we can adjust it later on in Arnold if we want to add some breakup, because I think that the roughness map is already broken up quite a lot. So I don't think we need that much actually. So the effect is super subtle. So you can see it's very, very little color here. And I think we can work with that. Let me actually boost this up a bit so we can dial it in later. All right, so I think this is now good. So let's just hit Control S and go to export textures. And then we still need to go to config here and just bring in our textures again. So we just want to make sure that we bring in the base color as well, because I removed that before. And this should be RGB, and we want this to be the base color from RGB channel. And this should be it. So now we should have in the export options, it should actually export that as well. And let's just choose the output path to be actually in our directory. And we want to make sure that we export EXRs as well instead of PNG. So right now it's on PNG. We want EXR files. And I'm not sure why it's not ticked on here. Let's just switch this up. Maybe it's an update issue. Yeah, it was just update issue. So now we have all the outputs. So let's just hit export and wait for the maps to be baked out. And then I'll see you back in Maya. Short intermission. I hope you like what I do with the new Substance side of things. So I might actually be doing a bit more tutorials about Substance Painter or a designer as well. So if you like what I do, please leave me a thumbs up for this video and maybe ask a question in the comments below. Thank you. All right, so I hope you guys are a bit more familiar with all this. So I'm just importing the cache fairly quick here. Import Alembic. We want to go up a directory to get the caches. So we have the same object here. We want to create a light, Arnold light, Skydome light. We want to create a light source, like a file image, I mean. I have a preset here, which is just my studio light, which I always use. It switches to linear sRGB, which is not correct. It should be utility. Sorry, my bad. It is actually correct. Utility linear sRGB is correct for this case. So now we have my mapping here. I want to create a new shader, assign favorite shader, AI standard surface shader, frame it. So we can just call this AI bottle like that. And we have it in here. So let's make sure we reduce the base color. We make sure that, that we have the shader here, bring in lighting information so we can actually see it reflecting. And now let's just import those maps. I'm just dragging them in the viewport. I'm doing the cleanup here so it's all sorted. And then I'm just moving them over here and I'm dragging, control middle mouse dragging this place to detection on all the other ones, and I can get rid of those two. And then in the Arnold TX manager, I want to create the TX file, selecting these. Make sure it's actually set to utility sRGB here. Sorry, utility, this one needs to be utility sRGB texture, and the roughness needs to be raw, and the height needs to be utility of raw as well. So now this is updated. I'm just selecting them and I'm creating the TX files. They are done. I forgot to select the udimm option. So in the tiling, make sure it's udimm Mari, and one more time. Then it found all the tiles, refresh this and create it one more time. So now it's creating the rest of the TX files. So now we have all of them on disk. What I want to do, create an AI range and connect the out red, which is just a luminance value. Sorry, just connect it here first and then pick the red. Connect this into code roughness, and I will explain why. And then the base color goes with, let's just create an AI color correct first. Connect it up, and then we go into base color. And then we want the height, which is an AI bump. And I'm just connecting the red as well, which is a luminance, and the out value goes into a normal camera. It might actually need to go in code, but let's just see what, or let's just put it in both just to be safe. Show all attributes here, and then we click the out value and connect it to the code normal, which we have up there. So now all these things are connected. Let's just move these guys over and then save it. And then we can start the render. All right, so now we have the render on the left, and I just created a camera quickly just to frame it. So let's just see how the roughness looks if we view this with the isolate selected mode and see if we get everything. So this is the roughness map, and I think we need to adjust it, but we are in the code. So what I want to do first, I want to disable the specular completely, no roughness. And then I just want to go to the code, bring it up to 1, and then we can already see we get this nice effect which we had before. We can use a glass IOR, or we can push it. Actually, I like 1.6 in this case. If I bring the reference back up here, you can see how this looks. So let's maybe just move it somewhere. Let's just move this on the side. And then this one can go to the other side. Maybe scale it down slightly. There we go. You can see it's a bit more reflective, that material. It almost looks metallic. So I just want to push it up a bit. We can even go 6.5. Obviously, that's not 100% physically correct, but I think it will just do the trick. Let's just see if we can actually push the roughness a bit. So I like to enable smooth step so we clamp the values, and then I can just reduce the input max a bit so we get more whites like that. So now overall it should be a lot more rougher. Just see how that looks. And we can see now we get these really dry patches here. And I want to also increase the output min. What it does, it actually just lifts the blacks. So if I go 0.05, you can see everything is a bit lifted now. So now the glass is not super shiny anymore, but we still have this really dirty dust effect, which is pretty cool. We don't have transmission yet, and I will explain why I did it how I did it. So I disabled the specular completely, which just means we don't get any specular reflection. So if this is off, we just don't have any reflections. The benefit, though, is that if this is off, I can control the roughness independently from the specular to the transmission or the refraction. And the beauty of that is that, or normally if you don't do this, I can show it. If I bring in the refraction now, you can see this is not my glass, but if I want to have the roughness map, or if I just want to have a roughness in general, let's say a 0.1 roughness, it will actually sandblast the glass. You can see that it's not see-through anymore. This is a physical correct phenomenon, but because I need the artistic control, I always break the link, so I always disable this, and now I get a super clean reflection or refraction. Actually, I need to boost my settings here. We just have 3 samples on the GPU now, so we need to go at least on maybe 10. We can even go on 20 for now. It doesn't matter much, and it just takes a longer time to process. You can see now how that looks. And if I go back to this, and I now boost the refraction again, sorry, the roughness, you can see now how it's getting sandblasted. And we want a bit of that, but not too much. So let's first bring in the code again. So we have the reflection, and then I want to disable the specular. So now we're only dealing with refraction on the specular tab. And this is now only driving the code this here. And I think it looks already a lot better than before. So now we have some kind of roughness here. We have an IOR for my glass. So obviously we can change this independently as well. So this IOR here is for the refraction, and this IOR is for the specular. And you can see the controversy here. It's not physically correct. It doesn't matter though, or I think it doesn't. Yes, autosave. And next up, I want to create this little color shift here. Right now we have a white glass. I want to make sure that we have some kind of colorization on it. So in the refraction transmission tab, I want to go to color, and I just want to pick some kind of green, yellow, green, something like that. And let's go a bit darker like that. So you can see that I'm not really changing the color much in terms of, like, I'm not really desaturating it. What I'm doing instead, I will be using the depth here. And if I put the depth, this is kind of like the physical thickness of the object. If I go to 2, I think that the GPU always needs to get a restart for this to actually work. So let's just do that. So now you can see with the depth of 5, we only get this kind of green sheen at the bottom here. And this is what I want. So you can see if I reduce it by a lot, we get the color back. And where the glass is thicker, we get a more saturated color, which is exactly what I want. But obviously we don't want it that strong. So I just go back to maybe 5. And I think it's a bit too yellow. So I'm just switching it back to a bit more green color. Maybe something more like this. Can desaturate a slight amount. Something like this. I think this works very well. Just a slight amount of green at the bottom here. And what I want to do as well, I just want to reduce the amount of refraction on the edges. It's also not a physical accurate thing to do, but I think it does help to just get the look I want for this kind of effect. So I can just plug in the value directly to the transmission here. And just by doing that, you should see that it only affects the edges. So we need to fine tune this. So right now, this is the effect. If I bring up the gain, you can see it slowly pushes out towards the edges only. The bias moves it back in. So now this is a kind of a little balancing act here to get exactly the look you want. And I think something like this maybe. Let's just see how this looks. Obviously, it's way too strong. So what I always like to do then is just create an AI range. AI range. You can do lots of things. I think AI range works quite easy for this. So I'm just hooking these quickly up here. And then we're just outputting the red to the transmission. And what I then want to do is I just want to, if I increase the output min to 1, the effect is off, so I can then slightly just reduce it, so we get like a really subtle blending on the edges here, which is pretty much, this is I think a good way. So you see there's some kind of fall off towards the sides. And then let's just try to get the base color working. Right now this is connected, but we don't have anything in here. So if I look at this now, this is my map right now. Is that correct? I was expecting at least to see some kind of texture on it. Let's just boost it up a bit. Yeah, there we go. So if I just boost it, you can see there is something happening here. We just need to go a lot stronger. Like, I think actually I didn't have to switch it to srgb. I think it was actually a linear already, but it doesn't matter. We can just leave it as it is. If I bring this up back to 1, we need to actually now use a map for this to disable the transmission where we have the texture. So it's actually a bit more complicated to set it up in one shader. So I'm just generating an AI range here, hooking up the color and going into the input here. And I'm just connecting this up quickly just for me to extract the color. It's a super low value. We just need to go even lower, 0.05. Let's see if we see it now. Okay, now we see it. So now we have a little mask here. And what I want to do with that is I want to connect this to my transmission map, which is right now looking like this. So I want to create an AI color correct. And then I just want to plug the output of that map into the mask of the color correct, which helps me to actually grade it only on those certain areas. So if I do this and I hook this back up here to the transmission, I should now be able to reduce the transmission on that mask effect. So now you can see I'm dialing it down only on this area. And by adjusting the range even further, we can get even better looking, like a better looking matte there. So let's see how this looks. So now we have actually pretty much a black and white mask for the transmission. And for the color, we have this. So now you can see the effect. If I go to my full image, you can see now we have this dust on top here. And this is now controlled by the mask or by this multiply. So if I zoom in the top here and I just bring down the multiply, you can see I can easily just blend it in a tiny bit like this. And this is pretty much the roughness effect I wanted to get, or just the dust or whatever you want to call it. And we still didn't touch up on the bump map, which is on the inside, which is just breaking up the little, like adding these little dents and whatnot. So I can push it a bit, 0.5. So we can now see already we have a bit stronger these little droplets on the inside, which looks pretty cool. Let's just adjust the range a bit. It's a bit too tight, I think. It should be a bit softer now. So we have that. And the last thing what I want to do is adjusting the bump map. And what I mean by that is I can create an AI noise, which is and create a super broad looking map. And I want to connect that into a bump. And then I just pick the red, again, a luminance value for this bump map. And then in the output of this bump 2D node, I can show all attributes. And I want to connect the out value to the normal. And what this enables me to do is actually stack different bump maps. So if I look at the noise now, this is a pretty broad one. And I think it's actually fairly good already. I should just be able to boost the bump height and we should see the effect I'm going for. If I go maybe 2.1, you can see we get this nice distortion, and you can see it actually on the reference pretty good, that this line here is very broken and there's some kind of motion to it. Like it's not fully straight, everything. So obviously what I did here is way too much, but the idea is that. So now you can already see we get this slight dents here, and this just totally helps to break it up. And you can see this looks very nice, I think, the bottom piece here. And this would pretty much be that. So what I want to do now is we can switch it to different environments and just see how that looks in not a studio environment. And then I'll just render a full image here. So let's just zoom out like this. And then I'm just quickly selecting my HDRI and just picking a different one. So this is now how it looks in a different environment. And I think obviously it helps to look at stuff in different ones, but I think it still holds up. The dust is not too apparent, but I think once it's moving or something, you should see it a lot better. And I definitely love the droplets in here. So this is a very nice touch to all of this. All right, that sums up the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. It was a bit more in-depth, like how to create glass, what you can do, like what tips you can do to break up the reflections, to use the different code and specular settings in the shader. And obviously we went into Substance Painter a bit more in depth. I explained the steps a bit more carefully, so everything is a bit more clear what I was doing. And I just showed you a general way how to export maps, how to paint and work with the tool itself. So again, if you like what I do, please leave me a thumbs up. I would highly appreciate that. And share the video, like share it to your friends, and yeah, let me know how it works out for you. And don't forget, we have a very active Discord channel. The link is in the description as well. So be sure to check that out and join the community. Thank you very much, and I see you guys in the next tutorial.